1, 2. Is this on? When talking about any open form game like a tabletop role playing game, you have to realize one very important rule. Science is not game mechanics. I have seen more bad rulings and more bizarre updates to game systems stemming from this misunderstanding than any other. People will use so called logic to weasel some advantage in gameplay by taking two things that are inherently at odds with each other and try to blend them together. One example is falling damage. If your character gets thrown out of a window, falls 10 feet to the ground, what happens? In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, you take a d6 bludgeoning damage. Also in that game system, being hit with a mace deals a d6 bludgeoning damage. Physics says that falling 10 feet accelerates an object to 25.4 feet per second. Does this mean that a mace is traveling at 25.4 feet per second when it is swung? Not necessarily, because, again, the game rules aren't physics. But this is the sort of rationing is how people created the peasant railgun. The idea is you line up a village full of peasants, have them all ready in action to pass the javelin forward, and the last guy's ready to action is to throw the javelin. Because all these actions take place in one round, or 6 seconds, physics says that the javelin accelerates to a speed upward of 1,500 miles per hour. The person who posted this rule-breaking idea went on to say that according to the falling item rules, getting hit with a wooden pole from a height of 60 feet deals 2d6 damage. So they extrapolated this to mean that a similar object, traveling at the speed generated, would do an additional 300 d6 damage in this case. Naturally, this ignores rules already in place, but it was such a discussion, especially online, that the 2024 revised rules for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition includes the phrase, rules aren't physics. There are a lot of non-rules circulating on the internet along these lines. Magic, creating matter, trying to be explained with physics, for example, how much energy is generated if you create a feather pillow. One famous example of physics meeting magic is Neil deGrasse Tyson trying to figure out how heavy Thor's hammer is, ignoring that it's magic that prevents the non-worthy from lifting it, and it does actually have a canon weight of 42.3 pounds. Anytime you mix magic and science, you will calculate incorrectly because magic isn't science. If it was explainable with cause and effect, it wouldn't be magic in the first place. But experiments like the peasant railgun fail because the person is cherry picking which rules to use to get their desired outcome. For example, there are limits to the damage dealt by falling or by falling objects. Other examples include combat nerds trying to math out a 5-foot combat square. I've seen so many videos on that. Another one is when we were making gun rules for our Dungeons and Dragons based Fellowship of the White Star campaign, one of the guys was really into fast shooting competitions at the time and was therefore using math from them to justify either allowing or disallowing certain rates of attack at different character levels. The biggest thing that I've seen misunderstood, though, is time. Time is what allowed people to try the peasant railgun in the first place because, a combat round is 6 seconds. If it travels this far in those 6 seconds, then this must be how fast it's going. Time is very confusing, especially to people who only read part of the rules in the first place. One of my favorite stories about time in a role-playing game took place when Living Greyhawk was just getting started. Living Greyhawk, for those of you who don't know, was built on Living City from a campaign management standpoint. And one of the things Living City had going for it was that it had been around for years at this point, and so a new player could play the backlog of events and level up fairly quickly. Living Greyhawk specifically wanted to avoid this. We sat in a meeting talking about how many events a single character could play. We wanted to make players choose between doing metagame events, things like their character being in a guild or in an army, something that would take time away from adventuring, and in playing more events. The head of the campaign, Eric, had already decided that each region would be allowed 8 events per year. There would also be 8 core events that every region could run, and there would be 8 adaptable events that a region could adapt for their region if they wanted to. So without travel, a character could play all 24 events. This was in part to stop people from living in a small region like Ohio, which was its own region, to just drive 3 hours and get a whole new set of events that they could play. But to encourage regional play over the others, those events would cost one time unit and the others would cost two. So a character at this point needed 40 time units to play all 24 events. The group meeting decided that travel play and metagame activities would also be 8 for simplicity, so 8, 8, 8, 8. This meant that a character would get 48 time units. I then suggested 52 time units, just rounded up to an easier number to remember to reset the character to at the beginning of every year, and everybody agreed. It didn't take long, though, for players to decide, unprompted by anyone, that one time unit equals 1 week. And so every module, logically, takes 7 days to complete. So again, logically, modules that could be done in just 1 or 2 days in character should not cost time units at all. And that was an actual complaint and debate that we had to deal with, or at least some of us had to deal with. I tried to stick to D&D today for accessibility, but what are some game rules you see either broken by science or broken by the misapplication of science? Do you agree with wizards that rules aren't physics? Leave a comment below, and let's all discuss where the line between fun and realistic should be.